Hi, I'm Liz Forte. I'm Health and Wellness Director at Compass UK and Ireland. Welcome to the latest in the Eurest series of the Future of Food at Work. This one is all about the art and science of coffee. Coffee is big business, with over 95 billion cups consumed across the world every day, and 95 million of those are drunk in the UK. That's an awful lot of coffee for a nation of tea drinkers. In fact, the UK is one of the world's leading coffee markets globally, with sales of 10 billion in 2018, and that's set to increase by 4 to 6 billion in 2020. And we're not just drinking more coffee than ever, we're drinking more types of coffee. Over the last few years, flat white sales have increased by 53%, cold brew by 32%, and filter coffee by 29%. And iced coffee as a whole is increasing by 7.3% year on year. There were 1,400 specialty coffee shops in the UK in 2019, and pre-COVID, that number was set to increase to 2,500 in 2020. I'm here today at Grind in London Bridge. They've had an incredible journey with an amazing story to tell, and we'll hear more about that later. So what's behind our seemingly unquenchable thirst for the black stuff? Well, I think there are a few factors at play here. Firstly, in the workplace, coffee time is break time, especially if it's barista made and gets you away from the office kitchen. Leaving our desk to get a cup of coffee gives us a change of scenery, a change of pace. It's really important to be able to take a break from work, and actually that makes you more productive in the long run. And there's also the opportunity to have those kind of chance encounters, the social glue that keeps you together, interacting with different colleagues that you might not normally see, or someone from another company, or an opportunity to network or collaborate, or just help feel a kind of sense of belonging and part of something bigger. The same is really true for home workers. And I know that recently many of us have become home workers, but freelancers were often swapping the kitchen table for a coffee shop. And then COVID put paid to that. But actually, now that coffee shops are starting to reopen, you're seeing the laptops coming back out and people starting to want to work in those kind of spaces again. And then there's the social side. It's been widely reported that millennials are drinking less alcohol. So are coffee shops replacing the pubs and bars as a place to meet and socialise? And with a wide range of different coffees available, from frappes to pour overs, there's still the ceremony and the kind of engagement that you would get from a cocktail. So coffee is really fundamental in bringing people together. We've been speaking to Ben Weber. He's the co-founder and president of Humanize, a software analytics company who help companies improve by understanding their people. He's going to talk to us a little bit about how coffee machines can help bring people together.
Hi, my name is Ben Weber, and I am one of the co-founders and the president of Humanize. It's been really interesting to me looking at the workplace over the years, looking at coffee, because my work really revolves around trying to use data about how people interact and collaborate at work to understand things like performance, retention, what have you. It's interesting, I guess, because I used to assume that things like where people sat or where the coffee machine is didn't really matter. In terms of the data that I hook into, though, it became increasingly clear over time how important things like that were for how people actually collaborate and actually the performance of an entire business. Specifically in my work, what I do is look at things like email data, chat, meeting data, but also sensor data about the real world to understand the patterns of collaboration between people, how people spend time, looking at how those networks change over time, and how they predict, again, all these outcomes that we care about. What we saw consistently, again, as we went from company to company during my PhD at MIT, and then moving on to my commercial work, is that really the effects of physical space dominate how people collaborate. Right? Of course, if you sit next to someone, you talk a lot to them, which is not shocking. But interestingly, you also email them a lot. You will call them over the phone a lot. And when you think about things like a coffee machine, that is very different than seating, and that what that does is create more serendipitous conversations. Of course, I tend to sit next to people who are on my same team, But it's interesting that if I put a coffee machine, for example, in between two teams, those two teams will talk more to each other. Right? Of course, if I put it in the center of a team area, that team will focus more internally. You think of actually how powerful of a management tool that is. What we see across our data is that literally the location of the coffee machine predicts about 20% of all the interaction that happens within the company. Now, if you want to compare that to something, you could look at things like the org chart. And it turns out that the org chart also predicts roughly 20% of all communication in a company. Again, it's not to say that the coffee machine is as important as the org chart, but in terms of collaboration, they're fairly similar. Of course, the org chart also useful for decision-making rights. Again, it's very important. But you think about typically how haphazardly companies choose where people have coffee, and you can start to understand why it's really an underutilized management resource, that it's an incredibly powerful management tool that companies have. Now, extending this to coffee itself, of course, it's not just waiting by the coffee machine and chatting for someone for 5 minutes that creates a lot of interactions. It's also something that then people can actually have a longer conversation over as they're drinking coffee, whether that's by the coffee machine, at a cafe area, or at their desk. And that's an incredibly important social mechanism. Again, if you think of the coffee machine and interactions there as these serendipitous cross-cutting interactions, that tends to relate to innovation, to creativity, and then there's literally decades of research on that. And we've validated that behaviorally, but it's pretty well established. When it comes to then actually having a longer conversation over something like a hot cup of coffee, you are going to create much stronger relationships. That's more helpful for things like building trust, exchanging complex information very quickly over the long term. Right? Again, if we know each other very well, and if we talk not just about work, again, it doesn't really matter so much what we talk about as much as it is we're building a stronger relationship with people. Right? These are the sorts of things that those sort of interactions facilitate. It's something that you see even as during a pandemic, people are working from home. You see the echoes of those behaviors that were formed in the office continue today. You're more likely to email or chat today, even working from home, with the people that you talk to face in the office. And it means that even doing things like having a virtual happy hour where you actually get coffee or something else with coworkers in other parts of the world or who you used to sit next to and don't anymore, that actually has real value. And that creating a space for a longer, more personal interaction, it can be about work, but of course it can also be about other things. Again, really in the long term is incredibly critical for the health of the organization and for us as individuals.
Coffee, of course, is habit forming, and the British Coffee Association say that of those of us that visit coffee shops, 80% of us do so once a week, and 16% do so on a daily basis. Or at least we did. As we know, the COVID crisis has hit hospitality hard, and it's impossible to predict what the future lies and how the high street will bounce back. But I think it's safe to say that our love affair with coffee is here to stay. And some of the existing trends are only set to accelerate. Take the focus on health. We know that people are interested in leading healthier lives and they're interested in diet and nutrition. That was here pre-COVID and has only increased more so now. Look at milk alternatives, a massively growing market in its own right, but one that really comes into its own in the context of coffee. Have you tried rice or oat milk, coconut, cashew, macadamia? There's so many to choose from now and more than just soya. Personally, I like almond milk the best. I'm sure a lot of people rely on coffee to help get them up in the morning, but an emerging trend that we're seeing is coffee cocktails, and that's one that I am personally very excited about. So not just your traditional Irish coffee or espresso martini, but a coffee Negroni, old-fashioned, or even a coffee G&T. You're unlikely to find these drinks on the menu at your local cafe, but for coffee shops that stay open a bit later, this could be part of the new normal, and a big draw for customers who are still a bit wary about going to pubs and bars. I spoke to David Abramovich, co-founder of London-based coffee chain Grinds. He talked to me about how he started with one coffee shop and then that evolved into a day-to-night model, serving both coffee and cocktails, carving out a niche in a crowded market. Hi David, thanks so much for being here today and
Pleasure.
talking to us about Grind. Tell me about your journey to running a multi-million pound business.
Like all journeys, it's been an unexpected one. I started by just converting my dad's old mobile phone shop on Old Street Roundabout into a coffee shop. And I did that as a side project at the time around another business, but kind of fell in love with it, started to really enjoy it. So raised some money externally from, first some high net worth investors and then a few rounds of crowdfunding. And yeah, today we have 10 sites in different areas around London. And, going into lockdown, we had a pipeline of additional sites planned. And yeah, look, it's been an amazing journey. We've got tons of stuff wrong, as you would expect, but I think, on balance, we've managed to get slightly more right than we have wrong. And yeah, we're still going and we're getting there and surviving at the moment, which has kind of been the story of 2020.
And there's been a real explosion in coffee shops in recent years, with speculation that they might outnumber pubs by 2030, and it's independents as well as the chains. What do you think about that?
And, we've grown over the years and we now incorporate coffee and food and cocktails. And, to be a small part of this massive industry that has evolved, so much in 10 years, has been amazing. And I think it absolutely will carry on. Whether it'll outnumber pubs or not, I'm not sure, but it seems like a very, very resilient sector, even at the moment.
So what makes Grind different?
I think what makes Grind different is that we're now evolved into, looking after all the different day parts. So much more than just coffee, food and alcohol 7 days a week in spaces which are much bigger. So over the years, we've evolved away from kind of a traditional takeaway coffee store. And now we continue to evolve into the at-home space, selling coffee through our website and channels like Selfridges and Harvey Nichols and Ocado, and also supplying wholesale partners like, for example, Soho House globally. We supply them. So we keep just evolving the brand and trying to keep it fresh and current, which I think is so important, right? Because in a high street business particularly, I think if you stop evolving and you stop developing, you die very fast. And I think there's plenty of evidence of that at the moment.
What is it about coffee? What's the magic behind coffee that enables you to grow and do all these new different things? What's keeping people interested?
We didn't come into this as kind of coffee geeks or coffee experts. I came into this with a store that I thought would make a really good coffee shop and wine bar and kind of work backwards from there. And I think actually that lead in to opening the first site kind of changed how we looked at things quite a lot, because we really looked at it from the customer's perspective, not the barista's perspective. So it was about what does the customer want to drink, not what does the barista want to make, because people in the industry tend to be very focused on espresso and things like that. But, in reality, 80% of our drinks are milk-based. So we just try and make the absolute best product that we can. We roast it ourselves in Elephant and Castle, just up the road from here. We have the best equipment, highly trained baristas, and we try, we really focus on speed and consistency as well. So I think it's about trying to take the mass market into specialty coffee for us. It's not just about trying to appeal to kind of the fringes of, the very, very specialty people.
How are coffee drinking habits changing?
I think coffee drinking habits have changed a lot over the last few years. I think, the best example for me is when we started in 2011, people used to come into the store and they didn't know what a flat white was. And I used to hear the staff explaining, okay, this is what a flat white is. This is how it's different to a latte. Fast forward 10 years, McDonald's have TV adverts mocking flat white culture, how ridiculous it is, and come and get a coffee for 99p. So that's a great kind of demonstration to me of the arc that this thing has followed. What we're seeing now is just a massive move to at-home coffee, clearly fueled by the COVID lockdown. And certainly our sales through our online store have exploded. And I know that similar things are happening in the US because people want to recreate that cafe experience at home. So that's by far the biggest trend in 2020 is this shift from on the go to at home.
Okay. And are people concerned with where their coffee is coming from? Are we becoming more discerning about that?
I think we are, but we've always stayed away from, having pictures of farmers and having posters up saying that everything we buy is fair trade and hammering that into people, because, I think for brands like us, kind of the next generation of digital brands, I think customers build loyalty with them through various different channels, digitally and in store. And that's just an expectation. Like, of course our coffee is fair trade. In fact, it's not fair trade, it's directly traded, which is much better than fair trade. Like, of course we understand the supply chain. Of course we use the best milk and things like that. We don't have to hammer that into people. I think it's a hygiene factor now. It's expected. But I think, there are people who do still want to dig into it. So it's really important that you have the answers and you can say, yeah, this is organic soil trade certified, or this is, whatever other accreditation. And of course our Nespresso pods are compostable and we wouldn't add to the single-use plastic problem. But it's kind of an expectation now, I think.
What's the most exciting thing for you about your business?
I think, look, 2020 has clearly been a very challenging year for anyone involved in hospitality in any way. So I think the most exciting thing is that we're surviving, and we have survived. And our online and at-home business has exploded through lockdown, as I mentioned, and just kind of going on that journey now and trying to really take advantage of that whilst we wait for people to come back into the centre of London, because they're not doing that yet. But if we can maintain the at-home piece and London goes back to normal, we'll have a much bigger business than we did going into lockdown. So that's really exciting. These things always present opportunities in some way.
I was thinking a bit before about working from home, and I've got a nice coffee machine, and actually just taking 10 minutes to have a good coffee at home has really got me through the whole lockdown situation. Have you heard that from other people?
Yeah, we've heard that a lot. Lots of people, lots of our customers that were coming to our stores have obviously shifted into buying coffee to have at home. And, every day our Instagram is full of people mentioning us, saying, thank God my coffee just arrived. Thank God Grind getting me through lockdown. So, so we love seeing that stuff. It's really nice. And we think that's a massive opportunity for the future. And I think, we've had a lot of inbound requests actually from businesses asking us to, send out 500 tins to their staff members all across the country, just as a little thank you present to say, we know you're probably missing the Grind next to the office, so here's some Grind at home. And so little things like that are really, really nice, like that kind of human link back into our customers, even though they're now buying from us online, not face-to-face across the counter.
And we were talking a bit about buying online, but the whole subscription model is super interesting, isn't it? And I think that's expanded massively for lots of businesses throughout lockdown. How's it work for you? Yeah,
subscription is something we're really excited about. We've gone from a few hundred to many, many thousands of people subscribing now to get their Nespresso pods or their beans or ground coffee, in flat letterbox boxes through the post. And I'm subscribed to about 10 different things that I get to my house, all sorts of things. And, people just love the convenience. And with something like coffee, your consumption is pretty predictable. I've had 2 or 3 coffees a day for as long as I can remember, kind of come whatever weather, whatever circumstances. So I think it's nice to just set it and forget it on those kind of things when you find a brand and a product you like. And obviously for us on the manufacturing side, it means that it's very predictable in terms of sales, which helps our purchasing and helps us support farmers in other parts of the world kind of more consistently, because we know exactly what volumes are coming.
Apart from the obvious social distancing requirements, do you see anything else changing beyond COVID?
Look, I'm really hoping that the social distancing stuff is going to fall away fairly quickly as we either come to terms with it or get a vaccine for it, or a bit of both. So hopefully that will fall away, because Grind was built on very, very busy spaces that were buzzy and packed full of people all day, every day. And clearly that's challenging while operating social distancing. But I think, if people come back to work, and when they come back to work, will be the big change. Because, even right now, Central London is operating at 20% of the previous footfall levels. So, even if we get back to 90% of the previous footfall levels, most businesses on the high street can't afford a 10% drop in sales, because the margins have been squeezed so much over the years that there's not that much left. So, that's going to be the big question. When are people coming back to work? I've got every confidence that they will, but I don't know if they'll go back to 100%, and I don't know how long that will take. So that's going to be the big story for the next couple of years, I think. I'm
curious about this whole day to night model. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
One of the things that's great about Grind, and what our customers can tell, is that this wasn't a lot of people sat in a boardroom going, how can we extend the day parts and how can we sweat the asset better? You know, it was completely organic. And we just started selling coffee, and then we realized that we'd created somewhere that was quite cool and people wanted to hang out, and it felt crazy to kick them out at 7 p.m. So we started serving 4 cocktails, you know, and it was just basically, you know, my favorite cocktails. And then it kind of just evolved very organically from there. But it turns out if you can convince people to come back for a cocktail at night, then you can extend the day part of your business, and you know, you can get a lot more revenue out of the same space where you pay rent 24 hours a day. So that is very helpful in terms of building a business that can be funded and can be expanded. So, you know, our second site, we focused a bit more on the cocktails, and then our fourth site, which was this one actually, we put our first kitchen in. And so we've evolved to just give people more of what they want based on what customers said, you know, and it turns out if you can have a full kitchen making food, people are more likely to come and they're more likely to stay and drink 5 cocktails instead of 2 cocktails. So it's really just evolved to the point where, you know, some of our sites pre-lockdown anyway, closed at 2 a.m. and reopened at 7 a.m. So, you know, not far from 24-hour, 7-day-a-week trading, which is one of the great things about London, is that, you know, there are always people around and always people who want to go out and have a good time. And hopefully we'll get back to that soon.
And what are you most proud of, David?
Look, it's been amazing to build a business and scale it in London, which, you know, I think London's the best city in the world, and I don't believe any of this stuff you read about the demise of London. You know, London will be back and better than ever. So being able to build a business that can impact a few 100,000 people, if not into the millions of people who are going by our stores, is amazing. And I found out last year that Grind is in the Knowledge now for black cabbies. So I love that as a Londoner.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, so you have to, you know, one of the questions was, you know, Heathrow Airport to Soho Grind, or, you know, Piccadilly Circus to Covent Garden Grind or something. So I love that. You know you've made it when you're in the Knowledge, right?
Oh, definitely. I think that's brilliant. What's the future for Grind?
I think if you'd asked me that a year ago, you'd had a very different answer today. You know, I think the future of the business now feels like it's more skewed towards taking coffee into people's homes, our compostable Nespresso pods, and engaging with people digitally, because clearly that's necessary. You know, the high street is how we've built the brand and is super important, and we will continue to grow and we will continue to add stores and hopefully expand internationally. But I think, you know, the foot will be coming off the high street pedal a little bit and going down on the kind of digital and online pedal a little bit, because you have to. You know, the last 6 months there's been 6 years of shift towards online in 6 months. You know, it's ramped up unbelievably. So you have to respond to that. And luckily, we started building the manufacturing and the supply chain for the online business 2 years ago. So we were ready to take advantage of the pandemic, thank God, or take advantage of the fact that people were locked at home.
Thanks, David. It's been super interesting hearing
Pleasure.
about your whole situation with COVID especially, and what your plans are for the future. Can't wait to see what's happening next.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ethical consumption feels more relevant than ever, especially as we look to support our communities and do good where we can. And it's especially important in coffee, where supply chains can be complicated. According to Mintel, 45% of consumers would pay more for a cup of coffee if it directly benefited those who grew it. Understanding where coffee comes from and the impact that we have on the environment and our growers is really key. We've been speaking to Benjamin Dubois from Nestlé, who talks to us about blockchain technology and how that can really enable full traceability along the whole supply chain.
Thank you very much, Liz. Hello, everyone. I'm Benjamin Dubois. I'm Global Lead Technologies for Trust and Transparency at Nestlé, based in headquarters in Vevey, here in Switzerland. My role is about how to increase, through technologies, the amount of data we record, process and share on our supply chain, and in particular upstream supply chains. So from the farmer to Nestlé, and beyond to the consumers and the customers. So the context of the work as well is driven by consumers asking for more information, and the switch of trust from being about a brand or a logo on a pack to being about information and data that people must believe and trust to purchase the product. Two very similar products, one with information, the other with just logo on pack. The consumers most likely will buy the product that provides more information and we go towards that brand. That's how you build trust with consumers. And this is why we're on that transparency journey at Nestle. Not just about the product, but about sustainability as well, because credibility comes with information and data. The challenge is that because we are a very large company, it's sometimes difficult to convey the same transparency message that the small roaster within, in London, would be able to convey when talking about the product face to face with you. They do small batches. We buy a lot more coffee across the world for the same usage, but our supply chain is a lot more complex. So one way of doing that is by recording and processing and sharing the data about the coffee value chain, as well as the impact that Nestle has got on the community, the positive impact. How do we help farmers and communities grow their business and produce more and more qualitative coffee? This is, in principle, this is quite difficult to do, as I say, because we have a wide variety of companies working with us and farmers as well across the world. But because Nestle is very keen and passionate about coffee, we have a huge amount of knowledge and things that are being done in our coffee value chain within Nestle. And the objective is really about harvesting this and sharing that with consumers and being able to show consumers this passion and this impact that Nestle has got on the value chain. So in order to be transparent and trusted by consumers, we believe that we have to have three key pillars enabled by technologies. The first is about trace and quantify. Trace the product, quantify the impact. It can be greenhouse gas emissions, it can be impact on the farming communities, and impact that the product has through its life cycle. So to do that, we use various technology from ground sensing, sensors on trucks, to remote sensing. It can be satellite to monitor deforestation on plantation, and other technology to measure CO2 emission at factories or warehouses. So with that, we build a data set that is very accurate and almost real time. And we know where the product has been and where it's going in almost real time as well. So it makes us both very transparent and resilient. The second is about verifying this information and monitoring. So monitoring our impact, ensuring that everything and every coffee bean we purchase is not coming from any deforestation prone areas or has been sustainably sourced. So it's ensuring this sustainable sourcing through technology by utilizing the data that we've harvested upstream. And the third pillar is about sharing this information with consumers and with customers so that either customers can use that with people who comes to consume a product at their facilities or at their bars, or for consumers directly to understand the product journey and the effort that and the passion and care that has gone into making that cup of coffee for them, whatever that coffee is, whether it's an instant coffee or a reviving origin from Nespresso. And the sharing is very important because we have this wealth of information. It's about making it easily understandable and digestible by consumers. Now, a perfect example of how we've started, what we call baby step and experimenting, is a limited edition coffee that we've launched in Sweden in March. It's called Zugas, and that was their summer edition 2020, where here we've tried to educate consumers and provide information about the certification of the coffee supply chain by a third party, in that case, the Rainforest Alliance. The process can be a little bit obscure for people and consumers. So what we wanted to do is really to share the information that as they do their certification of farms and cooperative, the Rainforest Alliance records using blockchain in that case, so that Rainforest Alliance upload information, size of the plantation, numbers of farmers, etc. Every single time they record it on a platform called IBM Food Trust. And alongside that, Rainforest Alliance share directly with the consumer through IBM Food Trust the certification, the PDF of the certification that they issue to Nestle when it comes to shipping coffee from the country of origin to our factory, for that case, the factory in Sweden. So then the consumer can consult this information when they scan the QR code on the product. They see both the origin of the product, in that case, Rwanda and Colombia. They can see this coffee, where it's coming from. They can see some of the farmer's profile, part of the Rainforest Alliance audited farm, and they can see the certification that the Rainforest Alliance provided to Nestle as part of this effort with the Rainforest Alliance. And in that case, it's 100% certified coffee, 100% Arabica as well.
Away from the supply chain and closer to home, there's the issue of waste reduction. Reusable cups have been surging in popularity for a while now, and it's set to continue as people look to minimise their personal impacts. Some retailers, like one of our social enterprise partners, Change Please, offer a price discount if you bring in your own reusable cup to support your personal sustainability ambitions. We've been speaking to Jamal Ezel, founder of Change Please, to tell us a bit more.
Hi there, I'm Jamal Ezel, and I'm the founder of Change Please Coffee, which is a new supplier of coffee into Compass and Eurest. What I love about coffee is its ability to bring people together and connect people, but also to create a sense of community, which is especially important now in a post-lockdown world. I'm also really excited about the changing trends in coffee, which enable us to change the world for a better place, both from an environmental and societal perspective. Not all coffee is equal. Coffee might look the same, it might taste the same, but really what's happening behind the scenes, from what farmer is growing the coffee, how they're growing the coffee, how it's shipped, the roasting process that coffee goes through, all the way up to the person who's serving you that coffee, is fundamentally important for us to create a better planet, a more equitable society, but also to make sure that what we're doing on a daily basis is sustainable. At Change Please, we are a not-for-profit social enterprise. We find people that are homeless and rough sleeping, and we train them to be specialty level baristas, to really give them an opportunity to lift themselves out of homelessness. So we find people at shelters, and with organisations like Crisis, Shelter, Big Issue, we then give that person an opportunity with a 1 to 3 month training program. The people that make it through become Change Please employees, and we pay them a living wage, where in London, it works out to £22,360 a year. In 10 days, we offer all of our staff housing. So that means in 10 days, they're not homeless anymore. A bank account, therapy support, and in partnership with Compass, we support our staff into onward employment to work in many of Compass and Eurest's locations, to really give that person a sustainable way out of homelessness. One of the key parts of our process is to really support somebody who has mental health issues, or whether you're a victim of domestic abuse, ex-offender, a military veteran, have OCD, to really support somebody with therapy support. And all of the revenue and profits that we generate working through Compass goes into those areas of housing, therapy support, and paying a living wage. So we have a responsibility to ensure that farmers are paid fairly for the coffee that they grow. But we also have a responsibility to make sure we pass on and educate information to farmers, so they're able to grow coffee in a way which makes it as sustainable for them as possible. So what we do is speak to farmers and help to share information from more affluent farming communities in, say, Brazil, Colombia, to poorer ones in, say, Kenya or Ethiopia. So that actually they change the way they grow coffee and farm coffee to be one which reduces deforestation, allows them to change their processes from a natural process to a washed process, and therefore increase the amount of yield and productivity that they have on a yearly basis. It's very tempting for farmers to cut down trees and increase the amount of arable land that they're growing in. If we can try and encourage them to increase the amount of shade-grown coffee that they're producing, it means that the coffee will naturally be organic, but also it will increase the amount of birds, insects, animals that are able to use those trees as protection and cover and as their natural habitat. It also naturally increases biodiversity as well. So I see as an opportunity for us in the future is to really work with farmers to encourage them to grow shade-grown coffee. And that's something that I hope we're going to see in the next couple of years. So we work with farmers directly at origin to help educate them and give them the best practices to be able to grow more sustainable coffee. But we also try to find farms that are working with their local communities as well on a more social impact basis. So we work with a farm in Peru that supports women who are victims of domestic abuse. Another farm in Tanzania that supports landmine victims. The coffee then comes to the UK, where it's roasted by our sister organisation, Old Spike Roastery, to then support people who are homeless into employment. The coffee then comes to a range of sites, and it's sold by people that are homeless, either through Compass locations or on the streets of London and across the country. We only use cups that are made out of plants, not plastic, and we convert all of our waste coffee grounds into biofuel. This way we can be as sustainable as possible, not just from bean to cup, but from bean to coffee grounds. Current research shows that 45% of people will pay more for their cup of coffee if it benefits the people more that are growing the coffee beans. When we heard that stat, we started to look into other ways that we can drastically improve the amount of money that farmers are earning. So we partnered with an organisation in Holland to use blockchain technology to really track that process that the coffee makes from bean to our cup. And that allows us to reduce the amount of fraud, corruption, track the pollution trail, but most importantly, make sure that that farmer earns as much money as possible for growing the coffee that we drink on a daily basis. Typically, a farmer will earn 1/15 of a penny of a £2.50 cup of coffee. But what we're able to do to make sure that farmers are being paid fairly is to ensure that a farmer earns 1 penny from a £2.50 cup of coffee at least. Now that means we're able to have a sustainable way of working, improve the amount of money that farmers earn, but most importantly, have full transparency on the way that we represent what coffee we purchase to our clients. So this technology we hope will come out in the next couple of years, where most likely we'll be able to have an iPad or a piece of technology on the front of a counter that says today's coffee or this month's coffee has been purchased from these farmers and showing exactly how much those farmers are earning. Now that will allow us to have full transparency, but also put pressure on other organisations that aren't being as sustainable and as transparent, and allow us to really have as much opportunity to change the world that we live in. Undoubtedly, we've seen an increase in demand from businesses asking to work with social enterprises. And this has coincided with the number of Gen Zs and millennials who are now entering the workplace and working in organisations that Compass and Eurest represent. Gen Zs will comprise of nearly 40% of all consumers in the next 2 years. That accounts for nearly 2.26 billion people. So there's no wonder there's a changing demand from consumers and employees of organisations for social enterprise products. A recent study from Deloitte showed that on average 42% of millennials would deepen their relationship with businesses if they purchased social or environmental impact products. And 38% would reduce their relationship if businesses were not. And 59% of employees of organisations would leave their companies in 2 years, and 74% in 5 years if they were not prioritising these issues. We see this impact on a daily basis, When colleagues go to a Change Piece coffee bar and speak to one of our baristas and hear that they were a victim of domestic abuse, an ex-offender, a military veteran, and just, the same as all of us, a brother, a sister, a mother, a friend, that really helps to engage the impact of what we do, but also engage employees and consumers at the same time. So future coffee innovations from 2020 onwards will really continue to include ready-to-drink coffees, alternative coffees such as macadamia nut lattes, rainbow coffees, matcha, beetroot, all of those wonderful, exciting, colourful coffees that we've all grown to see over the last 16 months. We're also seeing a whole range of new alternative milks as well. So starting from almond milk, soya milks that we've all known, and oat milks, to now looking at things like pea, rice, hemp, are really going to change our purchasing behaviour and the way our colleagues and employees are purchasing alternative milks as well. Mostly from a health perspective, but also looking at an environmental perspective as well. We're also seeing a whole new range of sustainable cups. So typically the best case option that we've seen for sustainable products are the CPLA, non-plastic, biodegradable cup. The only challenge with this is it needs to be industrially composted. So we're now starting to see new options come about, especially bamboo paper cups that are disposable, which mean they don't have to be industrially composted and they can just go into a normal waste stream and decompose. That will be the holy grail of sustainable packaging within the coffee industry, if it happens, and we're expecting to see that within the next year. Between 2018 and 2019, reusable cups have become incredibly popular, but it's still very convenient to use a disposable cup. So we wanted to try some nudge behaviour to see whether or not we can encourage consumers to stop using our disposable cups. So we did some trials where typically a site would offer a 50p discount if they didn't use a disposable cup and they bought their own reusable cup. And the uptake of that from a £2.50 cup of coffee was relatively low. We then changed attitudes where we said the cost of the coffee is £2, and to have a disposable cup, there'll be a 50p penalty. So the end cost of the coffee for a disposable cup at £2.50 was exactly the same, but the use of disposable cups drastically dropped just by changing the attitude and the narrative around having to pay or have a penalty for that disposable cup. And we really feel that that option can really help to encourage consumers to stop using disposable cups and nudge them towards bringing their own reusable one. Undoubtedly, we've all been using technology more during coronavirus times, whether that's purchasing products online, connecting with friends, family and colleagues online. Technology use has been key during the last 2 or 3 months. And post-lockdown, we really see the use of pre-ordering apps as being fundamental in making customers feel safe when they're coming into cafe environments. An example of that has been a recent study that we've done showing that 61% of our customers will feel more comfortable going into cafe environments, and 47% of our customers will go to coffee shops more if they know there is a pre-ordering solution available to them. So we really see this in the short and medium term as being a fundamental way of enticing consumers back into a coffee setting and really make them feel comfortable about re-engaging in those environments. So we've really seen an increase in consumers buying home-ordered coffee via subscriptions. And we really see that continuing over the next 6 to 12 months, especially because those consumers were purchasing coffee paraphernalia such as French presses, V60s, Chemexes to make that coffee at home. Even some people buying full-on espresso machines for them to brew their coffees. So we feel a huge opportunity within workplace environments is to offer coffee bags which are either pre-ground or whole bean, so people could then buy them and take them home, or also brew those products at their desk, with the opportunity to sell retail products as well, such as a little V60, so they can brew the coffee at their desk. Those little changes will entice people back to coffee environments and make them feel comfortable. We have a great opportunity to change the world that we live in through the coffee that we choose to buy. Not only supporting the farmer of origin, the person that roasted the coffee, but also supporting the person that served you your coffee on a daily basis. Coffee has a fantastic way of creating a sense of normality, habit, ritual that we've all been missing over the last 2 or 3 months. And we want to prove that the last 2 or 3 months was just a blip. and we can all come back to that sense of normality. And working with Compass, we want to try and change the lives of the people that we're supporting all the way through the supply chain and prove that we really can make the world a better place. Thank you.
As more and more coffee shops open post-COVID, it's time to look at the key issue of the moment, which is the long-term impact of the pandemic, socially, culturally, and economically. It's really hard to predict what the future will hold, but I think with coffee and coffee shops, there are all sorts of essential qualities that will put coffee shops of all kinds in good stead. So what are they? Well, consistent delivery is what I'm talking about. It has to be really great coffee, and the same goes for service. It's got to be high standards. Ethical business practices, both at home and further afield, will be essential. And finally, a strong brand identity, one that stands for all of the above.